McConnell, Cenk and Iadarola, Ramesh is back. Ramesh Srinivasan joins us. And how you been, Ramesh?
I'm doing great, brother. I mean, writing this all out, but so happy to be back with you guys. I can't wait till we hang out in person.
It's not that far.
Totally agreed. Yes, that is soon. So Ramesh is perfect to have on today, almost any day, really. But he's, if you might remember, he's an author and professor studying tech's impact on political, economic, and cultural life. He was also a surrogate for Bernie Sanders in 2020 and served on the Biden-Harris Innovation Policy Committee. And we are going to start with Biden policy. So I'm curious what your take on it is going to be. All right, but big show ahead, everybody. We've got maddening stories, of course, as always. But we'll also make fun of Republicans as always. And a couple of those stories are delish. That's what the kids call it. Okay, I'm just here to relay messages. That's what a newsman does, relays the news. All right, so having said that, let's start with Biden policy. John Iadarola.
It's always good to start on good news. We've been hearing for months now about how jazzed Joe Biden is about talk of him becoming FDR 2.0. And in pursuit of that lofty goal, he is dramatically scaling back his legislative goals. And in terms of his budget, like stuff he has entire control over, it's gonna be a shadow of its formerly weak self. White House officials have left key Biden campaign promises on healthcare out of their coming budget proposal, as the administration focuses on trying to pass what it has already introduced, according to 4 people briefed on the internal matter. So what does that include? Well, they've jettisoned months of planning from agency staff, as their initial plan could fuel criticisms that the administration is pushing new spending programs too aggressively. The budget will not include his campaign pledge to enact a public option to create a government-run health insurance program, or his pledge to cut prescription drug costs. There's a lot of other non-healthcare related stuff that it also is not going to include, but those are kind of the major ones. And look, I assume that we are probably going to be pretty critical of it, but I do think that we should launch into those criticisms with a bit of understanding, because they have laid out why they need to do this, because they might be criticized.
Oh, I didn't see that coming.
I mean,
okay, well now, John, I'm glad you gave that context, because I didn't know it was that serious. Okay, all right, so let me start, and I'm curious what Ramesh thinks. So I do want to give you all the details of all the great programs that he proposed, and we told you he would not do, and we were right about. So canceling student loan debt, not gonna happen, not a dollar of it. Forget the 50,000, forget the 10,000, not a dollar of it, okay? Increasing the estate tax on literally billionaires, the richest people in the country. The estate tax does not apply to you if you have an estate. First of all, if you have an estate, come on, who has an estate, right? But like, I think under $5 million.
Compound, but
yeah,
state adjacent.
Sure. So the richest people in the country dodged the bullet, or at least their family members did, because by definition they have to be dead to estate tax to apply. Okay, so why you wouldn't do that? It doesn't make any sense. If you're being criticized for overspending, well, that creates revenue. But because it isn't about that. It's about Republicans and conservative Democrats saying, lay off our donors. Okay, then you move on. Then you've got the healthcare ones that John mentioned. Look, there's also not lowering the Medicare eligibility age, which he said he would do. And if you remember, there was a conversation about, it's okay, Biden is not for Medicare for all. We lost in the primaries. That's definitely true. And I want to come back to that in a minute, right? But he's gonna lower the prescription, he's gonna lower the age for Medicare eligibility. And that's a good first step. And after the Obamacare, there's a steps 2. And then he's gonna do a public option, there's gonna be step 3. No, there is no step 2 or step 3. We told you, we told you he wasn't gonna do it, right? And so progressives in Washington are incredibly naive, and I'm being polite, okay? And so, now we get to the heart of why not? Like, what's going on here? And so the reality is, so this is the different mindset that the Democrats have in Washington, as opposed to progressives outside of Washington, and that includes us, okay? So number one, in Washington, they're always playing defense if you're a Democrat. Oh, what will the Republicans say? Oh, no, the Republicans have said this. Joe Manchin has said that, we're gonna play defense. No, you play offense. So here's how I think about it. You propose all of it, and then when they say that when they scream uncle, you say, okay, well, or they wouldn't scream uncle, but they'd yelp, right? Well, then you start negotiations, but now you're starting negotiations over here instead of over here. Okay, it's just so elementary. Anyone who's ever done any business deal would know that. And so you tell me all of you corporate Democrats don't know that, and none of your corporate donors know that, and nobody advising you knows that? Nah, you're just playing defense because you actually agree with the guys. So, and now to be fair and give you the other side, they say, hey, listen, we're already taking so much heat for the infrastructure bill, and we're not likely to pass it in the way that Biden wants. We want to do things one thing at a time, and if we get that under our belt and Biden's already being popular, then maybe we could win the 2022 elections, the congressional elections, and then come back and do this in due time. We got 4 years. We don't have to do everything at once. That is just not remotely true, but that is the other side. It's not remotely true because you have no idea if you're going to win the 2022 elections, and you're a lot less likely to win them if you don't fight for anything.
Yeah.
And so that
means the odds
means,
went down with this.
Yeah, that means he might already be out of time. Okay, and so there's so much more to discuss, but one more policy thing before I go to Ramesh. The prescription drug prices, that's just political malpractice not to do that. And because everybody hates the high prescription drug prices, with one notable exception. The drug companies, which give tons and tons and tons of money, not just to Republicans, but also to Democrats like Joe Biden and Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer. Let's be honest about that. All right, Ramesh, your thoughts.
I'm deeply disappointed. I think we all can agree on that. In many ways, the reason why I'm often optimistic is I look for traces that can make me optimistic so then I can advocate and kind of gain energy around that. When Biden nominated Javier Becerra, who previously had supported Medicare for All, to be the Secretary of Health and Human Services, I saw that potentially as signaling to progressives that I take these things seriously. Every previous president, including President Trump, has called for lowering prescription drug prices. President Obama at various times described the public option as a realistic possibility. But in reality, unless we go for Medicare for All and start and end with that as the bargaining point, as the position that we take, there is no leverage whatsoever. And so this is obviously deeply troubling for me because it is clear that we continue to be corrupted by the medical insurance industry, by big pharma and the prescription drug industry. And at the end of the day, Biden and Harris have to make a decision. Are they going to have a clarified vision for the America that they believe in? Or is it merely going to be rhetorical with a couple bones thrown in? You can't really have a contrast with the fascist authoritarian right wing unless that contrast is delineated in a way that actually makes sense to people. There is no contrast at the current moment. And I think it's very, very important to recognize that Medicare for All, maybe not in language, but the actual policies it stands for are extremely popular amongst Americans. And so what we're seeing happen in here is negotiating against yourself. Perhaps you don't even believe in these things to begin with. And in so doing, you've compromised any sense of political clarity. And you've really turned on the progressive base that is the only base that has ideas in the Democratic Party today.
Yeah. So as I predicted, obviously we're pretty negative about it. So these are all cons that we're sketching out. I mean, the pro is that they wanted to avoid criticism, so he's going to dial back his aspirations, and at least now, Republicans and right-wing media will be really nice to him because he is doing the unity and the bipartisanship that they honestly want from him. And so now they won't call him a commie, Chinese, socialist, whatever. Like they won't do any of those things. Good call, Biden. But obviously this is weak. I mean, some of it isn't weakness. When you're really doing what you really would want to do, you may be weak about it, but it's not truly weakness to pay off the people that you like. However, is there a possibility that his weakness is both a a crisis and an opportunity. So earlier this year, they quietly announced, oh yeah, so the border wall, we're just gonna keep building some of the contracts that we've already got. And people got mad, progressives got mad, and so they backtracked on that, and they're not gonna do it. And then he was like, oh, we said we were gonna raise the refugee cap up to where it was under Obama. We're not actually gonna do that because the Republicans have been attacking us on the border, so we didn't really wanna do that. And so people went crazy, especially Ilhan Omar, and then they backtracked. Mostly, we'll see. He was being incredibly weak sauce on the situation with Israel-Palestine, and people got really mad at him. And it took a while, but he finally started to push for a ceasefire, supposedly. And then there was a ceasefire. So is it possible that we're getting this early look at what's going to be in there if progressives burn him to the ground between now and when it's released? That they will fold. They fold when the Republicans look at them. They clearly sometimes fold when progressives fight back. Can we get the last fold in our favor?
Yeah, no chance. So let me explain why I say that. So first of all, Biden is a classic politician. So he puts his finger to the wind, and back when when Washington was more conservative, he was draconianly conservative. Right now that the Democratic Party has become more progressive, he's become more open to progressives. And so there is a big difference between the Obama and Biden administration. That's real. The Obama administration was openly hostile to progressives, pretty much despised us, and told us to our face. Obama's chief of staff called progressives effing retarded. Okay, both of those, I don't know. You're not allowed to say either one of those words anymore, but they said them. And they said them not about conservatives, but about us, right? Not us in specific, although I'm sure they would have loved to have done that as well, okay? So Obama was openly hostile, Biden is not. The Javier Becerra appointment is a great point by Ramesh, that's right. And you say, oh, that's good, Ronald Klain, their chief of staff, much more open, way better than Rahm Emanuel. We can go on and on. So they're definitely open. And in politics, John, you're absolutely right. Especially a standard politician like Biden will test the waters. So he'll go, oh, okay, I'm gonna do this. Oh, no, look around. Oh no, people didn't like that. Okay, I'm not gonna do that, I'm gonna do this, right?
So let's torch him.
So now why am I pessimistic about it? Number one, the list is too long. You can't have him backtrack on 5 major policy initiatives, right? So he proposes them, he backtracks on them. Now you want him to flip-flop on all 5, he ain't gonna do it. Okay, it's too big. Number 2 is progressives in Congress are very weak, very weak. I'm just being honest with you, right? So the leadership is super weak. So Pramila Jayapal is the leader of the Progressive Caucus, and Mark Pocan used to be and is considered, still somewhat of a leader. And Mark Pocan was great on Israel-Palestine. And I love giving credit where credit is due. Jayapal is fantastic in introducing Medicare for all. Are they gonna fight on all this? They're not gonna fight, there's no way. They'd have to politically burn down his house and go, what the hell is this? What is this?
Well,
but they're not gonna, they don't have it in them. I'm telling you right now. And look, people can catch all the feelings they want, right? Pramila Jayapal is not going to do that. It is not in her nature. She will tepidly write a strongly worded letter or something along those lines. But so this is in the budget, right? But budgets must pass. Here's how proof's in the pudding, okay? If progressives in the House, there's 10 just Democrats, let alone the others, if they say no to the budget, it's no. It does not pass the House. We have enough votes. We have plenty of votes. It's not a matter of being upset or writing a tweet. I don't really care that much about the tweets anymore, right? It's a matter of saying, no, this is not gonna pass. There's no way, no. We vote no, hard no, not even close, right? But will the progressives in Congress lead in that direction? I would be shocked. I would be pleasantly shocked, right? But look, guys, let me explain more. There's extreme wings, and then we get classified into an extreme wing, which we are not in, okay? So one extreme wing says, I want to do Medicare for all now. Now, Ramesh makes a good point. If Biden started with that would give him the room to do the public option, et cetera, right? But in terms of actually, if you're hopeful to get Medicare for all passed tomorrow, I love you, but that's never gonna happen, okay? That doesn't mean you give up on it. That means you build up to it and you do it in a practical way. And if you say, okay, well, we didn't get our top priority, the hardest priority, the one that Biden said 1,000 times over he's against, well, then I'm gonna burn down everything. No, hold on. But then the other extreme wing is way worse, okay? That extreme wing says, Biden promised all these things. They're super popular. But since he said, no, let's all lay down right now. Oh, you're blocking a vote. Oh my God, we could never do that. But then, in the budget, there's so many important things in the budget that it wouldn't pass. It's called a must pass. Either look into it or stop patronizing us, okay? So it has to pass. The question is, are you at the negotiating table or are you not? And look, I'll end on this for now. The drug prices. It's the biggest layup in history. If progressives cannot block this budget on prescription drug prices alone, then you know they have no spine at all and they immediately need new leadership. I'm being honest with you. So, I mean, if they can't muster up the courage on something that has like 90% popularity to oppose Biden, that means, nah, they're captives of Biden and they're not gonna do anything for 4 years and we're gonna need someone new. So that's my take on it.
I totally agree. I think progressives need to really clarify what are the positions and policies that they will unify around and be a united front, because almost all of those policies are policies that the vast majority of American people support. The Biden approach or strategy, or perhaps lack thereof, is to try to be barely good enough for barely enough people. And in the meantime, rhetorically, try to please everybody. And it's not going to work because at the end of the day, Medicare for all, you don't need to call it that, but advocating for those principles as a North Star will be the only way to reduce the costs of health insurance sufficiently so that we're even close to in line with the rest of the world. What people want at the end of the day is not a corrupt oligopolic market system, so-called market system, it's not even market-based any longer, that exploits people like Big Pharma and the insurance industry. People want real opportunities to be guaranteed healthcare as a human right. So I believe that as progressives, we have to really clarify what positions we're gonna fight around, because otherwise we are just going to give up on fights and just grumble about it and continue to be sidelined and sort of grasp at these rhetorical bones that are thrown to us and overall just be peeved and dissatisfied.
Yeah, look, Biden's weak. He just is. Let's just be honest about it. So if I was president, let's have a fun time dreaming about that for a second. Would I do all these things? Well, of course I would. Why the hell did I get elected president? And to me, if you're not proposing the policies that you care about and you're not proposing them immediately when you actually have the best chance of passing them, that means you never really cared about them. You weren't driven by them. Like you'd have to hold me back with a couple of armies to not propose something to get money out of politics, right? But Biden isn't driven by any of that. He's driven by his ego, which is what most politicians are driven by. So he thinks, mission accomplished, I'm already president. All of these are gravy, they're nice to haves. Public option, it'd be nice to have it, but whatever, right?
Look, trying to get into his head, and this will be my last thing, they are pitching it as we've already proposed so many things that are big, the American Families Plan, the infrastructure bill or whatever, that we don't want to jeopardize those things by going too crazy with the budget. And I get that I'm not an expert and I don't know anything, but I don't see how that makes any sense at all. Like, let's not do this popular thing because doing this popular thing will hurt us when we try to do this other popular thing. How is that supposed to work? Like, okay, I get that they may say strategically that it's gonna be hard enough to get Joe Manchin to sign on to the infrastructure bill. If we try to do that and this other stuff, then he'll turn against us. But when we know the answer, when are you gonna fight against him? The answer is never, but in theory, like we are watching and have seen the effects of Donald Trump beating every Republican into submission for years, and he has benefited greatly from that. Biden could do that. Biden could attack Joe Manchin. He could send Joe Manchin running for the hills. He's the president who has a good approval rating already, who would be fighting against Joe Manchin to pass universally supported legislation, and not just amongst Democrats, but amongst Republicans too. That is a battle he should be eager to engage in, and that he doesn't have to pick and choose to maybe get the infrastructure bill or maybe get some things in the budget. He could do all of it with the progressives behind him, with hell, a lot of establishment Democrats behind him. Basically, we just need to turn against the worst of the Democrats. And it's not just Manchin, that's shorthand, but the calculations that are written in here in this incredibly attempting to be understanding Washington Post article, I just don't think any of it makes any sense.
They're all old school. No. They don't know anything, those people in media. And you say you're not a strategist. You're 10,000 times better strategist than anybody in Washington. You guys are forcing me to make a last point, but first, Ramesh.
Yeah, you guys are getting at the key point that right now is the time for all of us to act and for Biden to act if he's actually going to deliver on his sort of rhetorical promises, FDR 2.0. I really want to take this country to overcome these existential crises we've all been sitting through, Trump era and even before with the advent of neoliberalism. This is the time for us to really recognize that if Biden has the reconciliation card, he has Congress, and he has a stated set of positions which deeply matter to Americans. He's either going to act now or he's going to threaten his own viability in 2 years. And that's and in 4 years as well. And that's it. This is the legacy right now that is being written into stone.
Yeah, and guys, so people in Washington, they catch feelings all over the place when you talk in personal terms. So when I say Biden is weak, everybody in Washington will, they'll have their hearts broken because how could you have done that to Papa, right? But let's just keep it real. So here's what strength looks like. Yeah, of course we're gonna lower prescription drug prices. And yes, the government is going to negotiate the drug prices that we buy. We are the customers, that's how it works in capitalism. And if you don't like it, I love it. Republicans, please make the case for higher drug prices.
Yep.
Make that mistake, be that dumb. Go to the American people, tell them, no, we care about the drug companies and their profits. That is why we want higher drug prices. Make that case, I dare you to make that case. You would break them in half. You would win easily in 22 and 24. That is not hyperbole. That's not oh my God, that guy's on the internet. Oh, he just likes to talk loudly. If you can't understand that simple concept, you suck at politics. And they actually don't suck at politics. They're working for their donors. Be honest about it. But no one in Washington is honest. No one talks about the corruption. And by the way, I'll end on that. Progressives, I love you, but you haven't mentioned one word about corruption. Not one word. Joe Manchin is lighting your policies on fire. Cinema's lighting them on fire, right? And you haven't said one thing about their donors. That's really sad. I was hoping you were stronger than that.
Okay, well, we do have to take our first break. When we come back, CNN is finding itself in a little bit of a scandal. We're gonna break that down after this.
Can you name the representative of your district?
The representative of my district, oof.
I have no idea.
I actually don't know who the representative of my district is.
Do you know what the corporate tax rate is?
I think it's pretty high. I should know this.
Like in between 20, 25%. I don't know.
How many amendments are in the US Constitution?
Oh no.
This brings me back to grade school.
I should know this because I was a history major, but I do not remember.
I don't know that. I don't know.
I don't know.
I have no clue.
Nope. I don't know the answer to that one.
You don't know? I didn't know. It's time to change that. We live in the best country in the world. We live in the most powerful country in the world. We love our American freedom, but only half of us take part in the political process. Only half of us vote. We don't fulfill our duties as US citizens to make this country a better place. It's time that we use our voices as a team, as a country, to become better. We will stand up. We will be empowered. We will stay educated and informed about politics every single day because it's our responsibility. And Politiscope just made it easy for you. So join me, join us, and let's be Americans.
the right to vote if you don't already have the right to vote? That's impossible. Reason they tell you things are impossible is because they don't want you to try. It only took 7 years for them to get an amendment to get a right to vote.
Does this result in millions upon millions of Americans losing their coverage? And we've been waiting to find out, and now we know, yes, it will cut millions.
Public education was supposed to be the way to equalize everyone regardless of their socioeconomic status. But if you come from a family that's poor, how are you going to afford grade school for your kids?
This fight is about fairness and morality. It's about the American values.
You think that black people all across the country, in every city, were all lying when they said the police abuse us and the police kill us when they should? No, of course they weren't lying. Yes, it does happen. Yes, they do get targeted more.
Why are we going to put immigrants in prison for 5 years, which American taxpayers have to pay for, if we're so concerned with immigrants using up our so-called resources?
We're gonna do both. We're gonna fight Trump and we're gonna fight the establishment. It's not that hard. Yes, you can do both at the same time. Go tell them.
ShopTYT.com has new shirts like this one. And you're thinking, Cenk, what is that one? I can't see it other than the black. Yes, so I'll show it to you. If you can read this, you're not practicing social distancing. Yes! Now, you were practicing social distancing. This is over video. But overall, you get it. ShopTYT.com. All right, back on the Young Turks, Cenk, John, and Ramesh with you guys. And now, what's next? And Lee Verrett also with you guys, because they just hit the join button below on YouTube, instantly Young Turks members. If you're not watching on YouTube, TYT.com/join. It's so easy. It takes about 2.5 seconds to enter that in. And then you get all of our programming, including the bonus episode tonight. Some of you on Super Chat, like Michael Goldman, are asking about the Emily Wilder story. Don't worry, we're getting to that later in this program. Thank you guys. All right, John.
Let's do it. Okay. Last night on his program, Chris Cuomo apologized to his viewers after it was revealed that he provided advice to his brother, Andrew Cuomo, on how to deal with the sexual harassment allegations against him. Here's a bit of that apology.
Being a journalist and a brother to a politician is unique and a unique challenge, and I have a unique responsibility to balance those roles. It's not always easy. People can say and write what they want, but I want you to know the truth. How I helped my brother also matters. When my brother's situation became turbulent, being looped into calls with other friends of his and advisors that did include some of his staff, I understand why that was a problem for CNN. It will not happen again. It was a mistake because I put my colleagues here, who I believe are the best in the business, in a bad spot. I never intended for that. I would never intend for that. And I am sorry for that.
So there's obviously more of that. We want to provide a little bit of additional commentary that he provided, including saying, now, today, there are stories out there about me offering my brother advice. Of course I do. This is no revelation. I've said it publicly, and I certainly have never hidden it. I can be objective about just about any topic, but not about my family. And so, CNN has already said before he put out that apology that he is not going to be disciplined for that, although they indicated that they had some sort of problem not rising to the level of disciplining. But that's his apology. What do you think about it?
I don't even think it's necessary. So I want to be very clear here. So number one, I do not like Andrew Cuomo. It's not personal. I don't know the guy personally. I think his policies suck. I think he's been a disaster, both in the sexual harassment cases, but really the deaths at the nursing homes are deaths. And not only did his negligence contribute to that, but even worse, the corruption, the money that he took from the companies that run the nursing homes, and then he drives people that have COVID from the hospitals into the nursing homes so they can make more money. It's unconscionable, let alone the cutting the budget for healthcare in New York. Oops, and then you have a pandemic and then you don't have enough materials. I mean, there's the corruption of Andrew Cuomo knows no bounds. In fact, there was a whole committee to study corruption in New York. Once they started studying him, he shut it down. So he got away with all of these things for so long. So as you can tell, got no love for Andrew Cuomo. So Chris Cuomo gives him advice. Of course, he's his brother. Of course, he's going to give him advice. But that's not what, like, the thing that bothers me the most is the flaw ethics of corporate media, right? We're all so objective here. And, Chris was not objective on this one, and he endangered the great reputation the rest of us have for objectivity. What are you guys talking about, man? You're not objective on any of these stories. You have a bias just like everybody else does. We are honest about our perspective. We say we're homo progressives, right? And in a way, Fox News used to be the biggest liars. Of course, they called it fair and balanced, right? And that was Roger Ailes trolling everybody before people knew what trolling even was, right? But eventually Fox News dropped that. They dropped it because everybody knows they're the conservative station. Okay, good. At least I know, no problem, right? Nobody expects Sean Hannity to be unbiased. That's ridiculous.
Unbalanced, maybe.
Unbalanced, sure, but unbiased, no. But CNN is just as biased. Oh no, we're in the center. Thank you for admitting it. The center is still a perspective. In fact, it's the center of Washington, which is not at all the center of the country. That is the center of the corporate world. The ones that think, corporate donors are awesome. The politicians are not corrupt. Don't believe your lying eyes. Joe Manchin takes millions of dollars and so does Ted Cruz, but don't look at that. The Mercer family gave Ted Cruz $13 million in the primary. Don't worry about it. We never talk about that. The Mercers own Ted Cruz. No. It would be biased to give you facts. We don't want to give you facts. Why? Because we want to protect the corporate world. We want to protect the centrist view in Washington. Of course you're biased. In fact, Chris Cuomo's bias is the least of their bias. Because at least we all know, right? Not only is his last name Cuomo, but he obviously has said 1,000 times how much he cares about his brother. Of course he's gonna talk to his brother about his political scandal. We all know that, right? But Jeff Zucker and Anderson Cooper and Wolf Blitzer, and it's not about personalities. I'm just naming the folks who are anchors and obviously the executive CNN and Zucker. They're way more biased. And the fact that they hide their bias, to me, is a much bigger problem. Ramesh, what do you think?
Yeah, there's so many different places to go here. So first of all, you're so right that elite and corporate media is always biased. What's particularly odious about elite corporate media or mainstream media is that it claims neutrality. But there is no such thing as neutrality when you have a deeply symbiotic relationship, for example, with former President Trump. He was the best friend on terms of ratings, not only to the social media companies that I write about, but also MSNBC, CNN, and so on. They, as per manufacturing consent, we can date that back 30 years, Noam Chomsky's great work on the subject, but I study political economy of media. We can actually see how the stories that are sourced very rarely cover working class peoples and their concerns, climate justice issues, immigrant justice issues. Really, it's focused on the sensational and the spectacle. So for an elite Italian American from New York to say that he is going to help his brother out and claim some sort of ethical, sort of conundrum or compass around it is just sort of not surprising to me at all. However, I think what I really want to focus on is the nature of Chris Cuomo's advice to his brother, who, you're totally right, is a terrible governor, has handed over the keys of a post-COVID future to tech oligarchs like Elon Musk, Bill Gates, Eric Schmidt, and so on. And these are the people who've been making billions of dollars amidst this pandemic. But the nature of the advice, if you look at that story in some detail, the nature of the advice is Chris Cuomo tells his brother, call them all cancel culture. What are they doing there? They're playing into a right-wing hateful talking point. They're playing into the Jordan Petersons and Tucker Carlsons of the world. Instead of actually showing any compassion or empathy or understanding of how so many women have been violated by this governor. And for the fact that Chris Cuomo is willing to give Republican identity politics hateful talking points to his brother, the governor, to me, is what's deeply offensive to me about this.
Well, and I would at least hope, we've been having debates all throughout this week about cancel culture, and there's nothing I hate more than the way that term has evolved and the way that it's deployed, is that it doesn't mean anything, and most of the people using the term know that it doesn't mean anything, except what it means, whatever you want it to mean. I am not surprised that he offered advice. Ramesh's point, I think, is well taken. The nature is more important than the fact that it exists. I don't necessarily care about that. I think that if there was an issue with the relationship between them, I think 99% of it existed before we found out about this advice thing. It was that you have, a guy with a very big platform, an incredibly high profile journalist or commentator on the news who won't be able to talk about his brother in a rational way, as any of us wouldn't be able to. I have two brothers. You want me to start talking about them? It's not gonna be pretty, probably. And if they become public figures, it's gonna get rough. That's just the nature of it. It's weird to not be able to speak in an unbiased fashion about the governor of one of the biggest, most powerful states in the country. But that has nothing to do with the advice. That's just baked into the fact that we do dynasties in America. So yeah, I think that the apology is okay. I think that maybe, as Ramesh points out, talking a bit more about the content of the apology rather than just the fact that it existed, I think might be a good second step.
Yeah, so Effecto seems to agree with Ramesh, saying, but no apology for laundering his brother's reputation while the elderly were dying and covered up by Cuomo, which is arguably a much greater conflict of interest. So look, we want to ask you guys about it because I suspect I'm in the minority on this, but we'll see. So tyt.com/polls. So should he have been punished? Is basically the essence of the question. Face disciplinary action for helping his brother Andrew strategize about how to handle this scandal. Yes or no? And I think actually, now let me go to YouTube Super Chat for one more viewer here. Detroit Microsound said, Cuomo's colleagues at CNN are some of the best in the business of selling wars and terrorism. So look, are there things that Chris Cuomo did that could be problematic? Yes, of course. So, well, it comes back to his brother again. If he really got preferential treatment on getting COVID testing, I think that was one of the allegations against Chris Cuomo. Well, that Andrew Cuomo gave that to his brother and hence an allegation against Andrew Cuomo, that's a bigger problem because that's using your elite privileges to, step in front of the line. Okay, yeah. So that I would not give no pass for. But in this context, when Jake Tapper the other day said, Hamas started this conflict by firing rockets into Israel, that's total propaganda. That's not objective at all. I mean, and then every anchor on CNN, Medicare for all costs $34 trillion or $32 trillion, without mentioning that it saves $34 trillion. Jake Tapper, Anderson Cooper did that repeatedly. Every time they frame a progressive issue, how are you going to afford that? We're not biased. What do you mean? Oh my God, the Cuomos have a slight issue. Squirrel.
Yeah. Can I add on also, I think that this particular instance is so much less important than the general issue that, Sean Hannity pretended that Michael Cohen wasn't his lawyer while covering him, stories after story after story, and beyond that, okay, so Chris Cuomo and Andrew Cuomo are brothers. Okay, that is a closer relationship than you will find in most cases, but they all know each other. They all worked at the same law firm before. They all date the same people. They're all gonna end up working at the other networks. They're all prepping to work as press secretaries in the administration. They're all so tightly enmeshed together. Now that's not one specific scandal, but it's a big issue for the country. And it's another reason why you should watch us. We don't know anyone and they won't talk to us. We have no influence whatsoever. We're complete outsiders because they would never let us in.
And you guys are making such an important point, which is really, what are the stories that the corporate media actually covers and how do they frame those stories? That's really what the analysis is about, right? So if there's a spectacle like this besieging of Gaza, they'll cover it. But they won't really cover that the United States is the puppet master of the Israeli, sort of apartheid state, right? They won't cover that. So it's really about trying to focus on the spectacle, the kind of trace that is the spectacle, rather than getting to issues and trying to transform issues that are actually harming people that can be in the image of justice and change.
Yeah, I'm going to say one last caveat to John's point. We're actually even a little bit better than he said. I'm gonna keep it real with you guys, right? So he's right, when those guys, they don't wanna criticize each other because they want access, they go to the same parties, they know each other, they're friendly, etc. You say, well, hey, Cenk, you've been on Chris Cuomo's show and here you are a quarter of the way defending him, right? And one, I'll tell you that, right? I've said it.
And I was on once.
Yeah.
Notice they didn't have me back.
Right, and we've talked about that in the past. We own up to the things that we're part of. But guys, look, we just saw it, right? I love Bernie Sanders. And when he didn't fight hard enough on the $15 minimum wage, who's the only one in media that criticized Bernie Sanders? Everybody else applauded him for saying, oh, no, don't fight, right? No, we pushed him. We pushed him. Even though we love him, we criticized him, we critiqued him, we did a petition against him, right? The Just Democrats, so I like the Just Democrats. I founded the Justice Democrats. So yes, I'm rooting for them in a big, big way. But you've now heard me criticize them maybe hundreds of times. That's actually unbiased. Here's our perspective, but we're not wedded to individuals, we're not wedded to partisanship, and we're going to be honest about what the actual facts are. So if I saw that out of CNN, I would be shocked. I'd fall out of my chair. But honestly, also MSNBC, also the New York Times, I could go on and on. The New York Times with their incredibly arrogant attitude of we are the objective ones. And then every framing is corporations are awesome, politicians are fantastic, they're completely honest, etc. It's total corporate, it's corporate media, that's it.
It's the motivating factor of advertisers and their agendas, just like Biden's motivating factor in large part are his donors. And this is all corruption. And this is not gonna serve the public interest or people's interest unless we get to the actual issues, which they're not gonna do.
Well, we do have to take our second break. We are rapidly racing through this hour, but we've got some fun stuff coming up for you after this.
Old school's pitched to me from Cenk. It'll just be me, you, Jesus, Ben, and maybe Michael. And we're like, okay, cool. I can do that every week. As you can see, me, Jesus, Ben.
When you make the order, it says, don't exceed $20.01. So I'll just order literally anything to get it as close to that as I possibly can.
I'm sorry that I ordered $45 worth of food and got an email saying, sir, would you like to rethink that? What are you talking about?
I was in hell. I was just like, oh my God, the theater's empty, nobody's here. Everyone on screen keeps fucking cursing. Why did I let this happen? And the whole thing looks like it was shot through a glass of milk. My mom's gonna be so mad.
If you're looking for a heart attack, the short way, baby.
Wrong, I did put mayonnaise on it. I'm the most in shape, overweight person you'll find.
That's right.
He was like, why didn't you answer my call? I called you 39 times.
Yuck. But what makes you stop right before 40? What makes you say, nah, man, I ain't doing that no more. I'm cool.
And I called you back on the air. And I was like, okay, Kevin Smith, big shot. What the you said you'd come on and you didn't come on.
I'm sure I took that very well.
Yeah, you did. You called me back the next day and said, I thought it was 7 a.m. And there's now deep fake porn. I don't know if you guys have heard of this.
I heard of it. I just had some in the car.
I'll tell you who I'm not Ben Mankiewicz. Have you guys ever felt that?
Not ever.
And now it's just the three of us.
This is the intimate hour.
By the way, the last half hour of this, we're not even rolling.
Fair enough.
Kingsley.
See, I watch movies.
I'm done with both of you.
Once Craig starts laughing, I can't stop. And I was just gonna ask you about getting high.
Snoogans, Snoochie Boochies.
And members, of course, you can get the whole damn thing. TYT.com, join and free trial.
I'm old school with the old folks. Good.
John, come back.
Electric cars are awesome, but they aren't the best tool for every job. You can't park them on the edge of the sidewalk while you run into the store for a few things. On top of that, an electric car is just financially out of reach for many people. That's where Zoom electric scooters come in. When I say electric scooter, I'm talking about small motorcycles with space in front of you to put your feet. The Zoom scooter has a range of 60 miles, offers a smooth ride up to 40 miles per hour, and can be charged from any electrical outlet. Start saving on gas while reducing your carbon footprint. To find out more, go to tyt.com/Zoom. Enter the code TYT50 to get an additional discount.
I'm Brett. I would like to refer to this segment as the Do I Still Have This Talent show. So I want to see if I can play harmonica without my hands. I don't know why I have that. Nothing's gonna be more impressive than that. I can also spin a basketball on my finger. While drinking. I'm gonna spin a basketball on my finger while drinking apple juice. You can do this, dude. It's also flat. I don't know if that helps or hurts. And it seems to be somewhat wobbly. Ta-da! Nope, I don't know how to do this one. This one's a fail. Nope. Oh God, I'm so mad.
Our community faces a never-before-seen public health and economic crisis. Businesses are calling Levin Papantonio with their legal questions regarding COVID-19. You've asked and we've answered. If you're a business owner and have suffered financial loss or closure from COVID-19 and have questions regarding your insurance policy, call us for a free consultation. Some policies may provide coverage for lost profits and earnings. Stay safe, and together we'll get through this.
All right, back on TYT, Cenk, John, and Ramesh with you guys today. A lot more to go through, so John, take it away.
Let's do it. Despite Donald Trump losing in November and then presiding over the loss of the Senate with 2 seats flipping to the Democrats in Georgia, and then him being impeached after a failed attempt to overthrow the US government, Donald Trump still has like total control of the Republican Party. And he's been pressing his advantage, attacking Republican leaders all year to get them to do what he wants. And they've largely gone along with it. Both Kevin McCarthy and McConnell turned against the January 6th commission just this last week after previously seeming to be in favor of it, likely because they want to avoid further attacks from Donald Trump. Well, good luck with that, because giving him everything he wants is no shield at all, as you'll see in this clip where Donald Trump goes off on the current Republican leadership.
This is a whole different thing that this country has never seen before, and our people better get smart, and our weak Republican leadership better do something about it, or they're not going to have a job, but it's going to be much worse. That's the least of the problems. They got to get tough, and they better do it soon. You know, I'm watching the negotiation, which is a one-way negotiation in Congress. They get whatever they want approved. McConnell is hopeless, and he can't stop anything.
Can't believe he's sitting down with a person like that. Anyway, McConnell gave Trump what he wanted. McConnell and Kevin McCarthy, in the wake of January 6th, criticized Donald Trump, implying to varying degrees that he was responsible, at least in part, for what happened. And then they fell in line after Donald Trump repeatedly attacked them, despite the fact that Donald Trump doesn't even have his best weapon. He doesn't have Twitter anymore. All he has is his Tumblr, and that is apparently still enough. And so they give in and they give in and they give in, and always the threats to replace them with someone more loyal will be there. And so they didn't even get a weekend respite from his attacks here.
Yeah, I mean, I feel two ways about it. One, just everything Trump says is a lie and absurd. Schumer would be much tougher.
Yeah, right.
Have you ever met Chuck Schumer? Okay. And then, you know, at some point in this interview, he talks about how the usual stuff. Oh my God, you know, if the Democrats had it reversed, they never would have certified the election. But they did have it reversed. You know, Biden won by 43,000 votes in 3 states. Trump won in 2016 by 78,000 votes in 3 states. A nearly identical fact pattern.
And in 2000, Al Gore.
Yeah, and what did the Democrats do? They didn't fight the certification of the election. And so in the House, a couple of people said, hey, you know, we should investigate this further, right? Because of specific things. But then they certified the election. Everybody moved on. There was no riot. There was nobody stormed the Capitol. There was no talk of, hey, should we have the vice president randomly declare Hillary Clinton the president? They could have done that. You know who the vice president was at the time? Joe Biden.
Yeah.
Oh, Joe Biden and Chuck Schumer, they're so strong, they would have done it. They didn't do it. It was them. It was literally them, right? On the other hand, Look, Trump's strength is real, and it is greatly politically advantageous. And if Biden had 12% of Trump's political strength, he would get most of his bills passed easily because they're incredibly popular. Instead, he folds, and Trump threatens Republican colleagues. They do exactly what he wants. Biden doesn't dare criticize a Democratic colleague, and they do none of what he wants. Proof's in the pudding. It's super obvious what's a better political strategy. That's honest.
And that's the real contrast, guys. If you rhetorically don't bend the knee to the former president, to his cult of personality, then he goes off on you. It doesn't matter that McConnell or Liz Cheney, who was just recently removed from a leadership position, voted with Trump pretty much every single time when it came to any major policy issue. And in McConnell's case, voted against the conviction and voted against this January 6th commission. It's just about the cult of personality of Trump, and that rules all. And that cult of personality has little to do with democratic norms or any issues that actually concern 99.9% of us. And I also think, just that this is Trump trying to exert some branding with the One America News Network, because he has been deplatformed pretty much everywhere else, as you guys mentioned. And it's just him trying to rant and maintain relevance in terms of his own business and media image as well.
Yeah, speaking of which, there's a hilarious image of the plane in the background. Why would you want to remind people of yet another Trump bankruptcy, right? He ran a plane company into the ground, like he runs every company. They're so funny, right? Was it you, John, or was it Brett who was saying it's like doing a video if you're the former CEO of Blockbuster in front of a Blockbuster chain, right? Like, well, that's not really.
All he's got left.
What's that?
All he's got left is that plane right there next to him.
Yeah, that's what remains of his plane company. That's true.
And also, I don't think he sees it as a symbol of anything. I think he sees it as a little fun plane to play with. You've seen him in a truck. The dude loves vehicles.
That's true. When they were talking about Air Force One, the redesign, he's like, I picked the colors. Oh, did you, Donnie? Did you pick the colors?
He's now qualified for HGTV.
Yeah. By the way, that child of a man entirely runs the Republican Party.
Yep.
And so even McConnell, the legendary McConnell, he calls him weak. Are you crazy? McConnell's broken all the Democrats of my lifetime, right?
Yeah.
And even McConnell bends the knee. Yet the Democrats learn nothing from that.
Yeah.
Politics is about strength. But as we've talked about a million times, corporate Democrats don't want to be strong. They want to pretend to fight and then go, oh, there was nothing we could do. I guess our corporate donors win again. Oh, the Republicans made us do it. But progressives, you don't have to be like them. You could actually be strong.
Yeah.
Word to the wise.
Okay, let's move on to one last story. What is $30,000 worth? Well, it turns out it really matters what your current situation in life is. So we have two different stories involving that figure that we want to talk about. And the first is a new study of relatively well-off tech employees. So this is a survey of more than 3,000 employees conducted by Blind, an anonymous employee community app, found that 64% of workers at employers, including Amazon, Microsoft, and Google, would rather continue to work from home than receive a $30,000 raise. Now, to give you an idea of the sort of money they're making right now, Microsoft planned on an average wage of $125,000 at their Raleigh-Durham campus in North Carolina. And industry-wide, the median annual salary for software developers as of 2019 was $107,000. Now, I know a lot of people would love to stay home, I guess, if you've liked not having to commute and all of that. It's been a weird year, but that is a significant amount of money. And we're gonna get in a little bit to what it means for people in a different section of the economy. But I found it fascinating that so many were willing to turn down so much money.
Yeah, there's two parts of it that's amazing. One is, man, it turns out working from home is not a little benefit. It's a giant benefit that people care a lot about. And it turns out a lot of people can work from home. Some can't, right? We can't, we gotta come into the studio, but there are jobs that you can do remotely. And so I think it's a sea change in how we view work. And I think that's super interesting, okay? The other part of it is, of course, oh my God, tech people make so much money. Okay, that they're 64% of them going $30,000. Nah, it's okay. I don't want to commute, right? That is not how most people live. Ramesh.
It's because the way the digital economy is wielded is where executives and investors have acquired assets that are worth far more than any other companies in the history of the world. We have companies like Uber that are worth approximately $200 billion that have never even ever had a profit in their entire history. So we're talking about a very small number of people when we're talking about software engineers, an even smaller number when we're talking about managers. And basically, this is about less than 0.1% of the actual labor that goes into the digital economy. Because the vast majority of laborers who actually power these technological systems are gig workers. There was a recent labor study that I reviewed that showed that the working class in this country is dominantly women of color working in the gig economy, right? And it's all of us, because all of us are being constantly surveilled. We are being micro-targeted. Data is being gathered about us in incredibly fragmented ways.
See, Ramesh is making a really thoughtful critique of tech. All of a sudden, he's having tech issues.
Alexa, release him. Anyway, hopefully we'll be able to get him back. I think it's a combination of the two things you talked about, the convenience, and they do make a good amount of money, but like if you make $107,000, that's a lot more than an average random American makes. But if you're making $107,000, $30,000 still seems like a lot more money. I don't know, but let's talk about.
That's why John, I agree with you. Both phenomenons are true, right? Even at $125,000, $30,000 is still a decent chunk of that salary, and I get that the ones that are on the lower end of the average are probably saying yes, and the ones that are at the higher end are saying no. But that still leaves a big chunk of the middle going, nah, I'd rather not go through the pain in the ass of going into work. That's a big cultural shift.
Totally. Now, really fast, what does $30,000 make if you are currently unemployed? Well, it means a lot more. Take a look at this.
One ice cream shop in Pittsburgh couldn't fill open positions, so guess what they did? Raised their starting wage from $7.25 to $15 an hour, and now they're challenging other businesses to do the same. So what happened when you raised your starting wage to $15 an hour? What happened?
We received well over 1,000 applications. We received, I think, 250 applications off of Facebook. We had 200 and some odd applications come in, and this is over the course of a week. So we stopped counting once we reached 1,000.
So there, I'm not a mathematician, but supposedly if you work it out over the course of a year, it works out to around $30,000. It is a novel idea. We keep hearing these reports, like the things that are posted on the loudspeakers at Sonic that like none of our workers want to work anymore. I guess they just haven't thought maybe they want to make a little bit more money. Maybe they don't want to go back to being exploited in the same way that they have their entire lives. And it turns out that when you offer them not even what we would consider a living wage that's truly representative of increases in productivity and that sort of thing, but even just the $15 that is often talked about, it is incredibly popular. 1,000 applications for one ice cream shop.
So Pittsburgh for the win, number one. Number two, look at that, man. That's the two Americas. People are desperate to just get to $15. And so the current minimum wage in the country, federal minimum wage is $7.25. That's just about that's $80 above $15,000. So $15,000 a year if you work the whole year and don't take any days off. Okay, now if you double it to, in essence, a little bit more than double it to $15, which is what the progressive proposal is, it only gets you to $30,000. And so that's the whole. So if you're at a federal minimum wage, and both people in the house are working, both adults in the house are working, you only get to make $30,000. And in the tech world, there's rejecting 2 people's salaries, full-time salaries for the whole year, just so that they don't have to go in and work. So those worlds are completely different from one another.
And remember that a huge part of is also in stock valuations and equity valuations that a lot of these sort of white collar employees have. At the end of the day, it's really a question of who's disposable and who isn't in this digital economy. The internet was not supposed to go this way. And we have to do everything we can on a regulatory level to ensure that it benefits everybody economically. At the end of the day, this is also not going to be good for these tech companies or for anyone else, because we're going to be worth less and less. All the rest of us, we're just going to be worthless, and that is really where we are heading toward more and more with the ways in which technology is amplifying injustice and inequality.
Yeah, that's a great point by Ramesh. So. The stock options will make your salary irrelevant if you work at Amazon. So they might have that in the back of their minds. And Alex, one of our viewers on YouTube Super Chat, also made a terrific point. To be fair to the tech workers, they say it's because $130,000 is nothing in San Francisco, $100,000, but living and working remotely from another city or state, that's a great life. I hadn't thought of that. That's a great point by Alex.
Yeah, that is.
Yeah, because if they could move to Kansas, then they can actually afford a home,
or even just outside of the city, I suppose.
Right? Yeah. All right, Ramesh, thank you for joining us. Brilliant as always. Really appreciate it. John was also here, and
appreciate you guys.
I don't have to be.
I'm playing, of course, as always. Damage Report is a fantastic show. You got to check that out. We got a whole nother power panel coming up for you guys. And yes, we're going to talk about the story of the AP reporter who was canceled, fired for having quote unquote anti-Israeli positions. It's absolutely outrageous. And one of the Republicans admits that he's considered the dumbest person in Congress. There's so many great stories in the next hour. Come right back.
Damn it, they failed us. And if you're not angry about that, Michael, and any of you out there, then you're damn wrong, because you should be angry. Young Turks.
It was genuine. He was mad.
Cenk Uygur, known online as one of the Young Turks, isn't afraid to throw some punches.
3, 2, 1, fade up.
Cenk the Turk Uygur.
What kind of TV station is this? The whole point is for me to yell and scream and tell you what I think.
It was right out of like Wayne's World.
This guy on this little rinky-dink website is speaking truth to power.
We've been averaging 600,000 views a day, beating most of the cable shows in America.
We're the largest online news show in the world.
We're celebrating our 1 billionth view.
Television, we're coming.
More politics ahead with Cenk Uygur.
He knew that the MSNBC opportunity was an experiment.
And Phil and host beat CNN and headline news combined. At some point, they want to give me a show.
Every single year, that comes out of our paycheck. We put it in, and you're saying we were suckers.
When you, as a host, tells someone you're interviewing to shut up, that's going to raise a red flag.
That guy needed a tall glass of shut up juice.
If President Obama's doing the wrong thing, I'm not going to tell you that he's doing the right thing so I can, quote, support him.
He says to me, "You won't believe the meeting that I just had."
The head of MSNBC talked to me.
They want him off the air.
Cenk took an incredible risk.
We're supposed to challenge the government. That's the role of the media. The Democrats and the Republicans are here to screw you. And who on the air is saying it?
I wouldn't have done what he did.
That if I'm going to be a talk show host, I should be the biggest talk show host in the country. I don't think anyone else does it better. I don't think anyone's even close.
Before you know it, I'll be back on your TV doing a national show. I guarantee it.
We talk about TYT Army being so strong. Usually they help us run our show. Now they're going to help us run the country.
Like this.
It's time that we reclaim democracy for the people.
We had a huge victory for Wolfpack.
When Lincoln said this was a country by, of, and for, he said of the people, not of corporations.
Our representatives don't represent us. Whoa, democracy. United. We are. We are. Too strong. There's thousands of volunteers, and you can be among them. When you get the power back, oh, that feels good.
This is just the beginning.
Knock, knock. We're coming for them. Wolf-pack.com.
Mayweather will knock out Pacquiao. Floyd beats his wife.
Okay, I get it. You're progressive. You're looking for other progressive voices. Why? Because you want real progress to happen. You're tired of the why, regular stuff. You should be checking out the Young Turks. Why? Because who else is going to have Killer Mike talking about politics and social issues in his new TV show, Trigger Warning?
My dad wrote the story of his life. It's called The Original Young Turk. It's a book on shoptyt.com. Part of the story is how I became progressive. Now, he doesn't write about that per se, but in his life story, you see, oh my God, when a community helps one another, when the government also chips in and gives you free education, anything is possible. He went from an incredibly poor olive farmer to living the American dream.
Drop it. I love it. I love it. One of our viewers sent the Captain America shield for John, and of course he is Captain America. Let's be honest about it. And so I love doing that. But okay, look, we got a great new power panel. The Wizard of Woz is back, Wosny Lambre. So you know he's usually in Woznia, but he's joined us here today. Woznia is his new show on TYT on Twitch. He's also with The Ringer. He's also the host of Woke Bros with Nando Avila, who's also on TYT. And Bridget Todd is back. She's of course with Ultraviolet. That's one of the leading national women's organizations. And I love her ironically titled podcast, There Are No Girls on the Internet. So great to have you both. Now, before I get to the stories, I've got a quick correction for you guys. You know the comment about Trump's bankrupt airline, it was a bit of appropriation by me. I said it was either John or Brett. Wrong. It was JR who made that point in the morning meeting. So thank you to JR Jackson, okay? All right, now guys, we got a big show, or a big hour, so let me get started. All right, we're gonna go to the cancel culture story now, all right? So Emily Wilder is with the Associated Press, or at least she was. She's a young journalist. She went to Stanford, graduated recently, joined Associated Press just earlier this month on May 3rd. She largely covers stories out of Phoenix. Now, why are we showing you pictures of the Israeli-Palestinian situation? Because apparently she had strong opinions about the occupation back when she went to Stanford as a student. And that has gotten her canceled. The Associated Press has fired her because conservatives have complained. This story is outrageous. So let me give you all the details. First, Stanford College Republicans put out a series of tweets earlier this week, and they explained recently, we discovered that the Associated Press has hired former Stanford anti-Israel agitator Emily Wilder, who referred to the late Sheldon Adelson as a naked mole rat, as one of their journalists. I don't know if they cared about the objective status of Sheldon Adelson, who now of course has passed away. Anyways, first let me note the absurdity of calling someone anti-Israel. As John pointed out in yesterday's show, that's not a thing. You can't be pro-Canada or anti-Canada. You could be in favor of Canadian policies or against certain Canadian policies, and obviously the same is true of Emily Wilder in this situation. And now by referring to the Sheldon Adelson statement, they basically heavily implied this throughout, that she was in favor of Hamas. And in fact, sometimes they say, oh, she's connected with this group, which is connected with Hamas. Usual smear that the right wing does. And that the implication is that she's anti-Semitic. So let me just get it out of the way. Emily Wilder is Jewish. But facts are not important to the right wing, but also apparently not to the Associated Press. We'll get to them in a second. But what was Emily Wilder's other crimes? Well, they explain later in their Twitter thread. When our club hosted Ben Shapiro in November 2019, current Associated Press employee Emily Wilder penned an op-ed in the Stanford Daily referring to Ben Shapiro as a little turd. Again, I would say that is relatively objective, but so he hurt Ben Shapiro, she hurt Ben Shapiro and Sheldon Adelson's feelings, grotesque right-wingers who she disagreed with, and on this specific issue, and that is a reason to get fired? No one that works at the Associated Press can disagree with Ben Shapiro? That's insanity, total utter insanity. And by the way, the definition of cancel culture. So I want to break down the timeline of how this happened throughout the week because the Associated Press has a lot of explaining to do. But before we get there, let me bring in Waz and Bridget to comment on the heart of this story.
Yeah, I mean, you put it so correctly when you point out all of the absurdities of this story. And I do think it's really interesting that, as you said, Republicans and conservatives have spent so long whining about things like cancel culture, free speech, but they had no problem rallying to get this woman fired from her job. And truly, it is not about this one reporter. I feel for her that she lost her job. We're seeing this time and time again where these conservative mobs come together and start mass phone calling someone's employer to get them fired, while also complaining about things like cancel culture and free speech. It's happening to Nicole Hannah-Jones right now at UNC. I think that when organizations sort of cave to this kind of conservative pressure, they're just signaling that this is an okay thing to do and that it will be effective. And so I think as these institutions just cave and fire these employees for really, not really doing a lot wrong, we're gonna see more and more of it.
Yeah, man, there's so many components to this that, are kind of scary. Just the notion that if you're against the atrocities being committed in Palestine, on the Gaza Strip, perpetuated by the Israeli government, that you're somehow, quote unquote, as Cenk put it, anti-Israel? Am I anti-America for, denouncing waterboarding or torture or, sponsoring death squads in Central America in the 80s or the bombing of Cambodia and Laos? Or we can go on and on and on of things that the American government has carried out that we as citizens can point to and say, that was disgusting, that was horrible, it shouldn't have happened, it didn't make us anti-America. That's just kind of ridiculous. On the other hand, I wouldn't say it's just right-wingers participating in this canceling rampage. The left is doing it too. Progressives are doing it too, trying to find people to get fired. I'll never agree with the notion that somebody should be fired for a tweet. I think the circumstances under which somebody loses their job, i.e. their ability to pay their damn bills, should be very high. That should be a very high threshold for which somebody loses their job. And this clearly, obviously, does not meet that threshold.
By the way, it's a great point by Bridget to point out Nicole Hannah-Jones. I've forgotten about that. That's exactly right. They're doing it in both instances. And of course, there was Alexei McCammon at Teen Vogue, but that's more from the left, which goes to Waz's point. And guys, canceling people because they will not agree to the right-wing Israeli government position is the original cancel culture. That's what Barry Weiss got famous for. Then later, she canceled herself, quit the New York Times, and then pretended she was getting canceled when she built her career on trying to cancel professors who dared to disagree with Benjamin Netanyahu and the current Israeli government stance on the occupation. So the hypocrisy of the right wing knows no bounds. Now, let me get to the Associated Press, because the timeline on this is very important. So this happens this week, and Emily Wilder explains that in the beginning of the week, the editor said, I was not going to get into any trouble because everyone had opinions in college. Well, that makes sense, right? And she adds, then came the rest of the week. Okay, so what happened in the rest of the week? Well, the Washington Free Beacon jumped in on Tuesday. And so this gives you exactly how the right-wing cancel culture machine works. And they came in and said the hire could fuel concerns about the AP's objectivity amid revelations that the news outlet shared an office building with Hamas military intelligence in Gaza. Wait, what? She covered Phoenix, Arizona. She didn't even cover Israel and Palestine. So the Israeli government was right to bomb and destroy the Associated Press building in Gaza because there was a reporter in Phoenix who said that she didn't agree with the occupation back when she was in college. And for right-wingers, that makes sense. They're like, oh yeah, you see that? Associated Press had it coming. And the Associated Press panics and goes, oh my God, maybe they'll bomb our building again. You know what that is? It's Stockholm Syndrome. That you're so used to being abused by the right wing that you'll do anything to try to make them happy. But it goes on. Then we move to Wednesday. On Wednesday, two more conservative outlets, The Federalist and Fox News, published their own stories on Wilder. And Senator Tom Cotton tweeted of Wilder's employment, not a surprise from a media organization that shared office space with Hamas. Now, that is not at all confirmed. That's so far only the Israeli government position. They've shown no evidence of that. They pretended to show evidence to America. Then the Secretary of State for America, which is wildly supportive of Israel, said, this is embarrassing, but I saw no evidence at all, right? But there's Tom Cotton, who's, oh my God, cancel culture is so bad. Me want her fired. She with Hamas, okay? So lies and cancel culture. But look at the machine. It goes from conservative media to senators, to United States senators. And then they get the result that they want because of the cowards that made this decision at the Associated Press. Yes, I said it. And that's objective, by the way. We're gonna get to their lies in a second if we're being objective. But on our side, by the way, quick side note, you couldn't get Democrats to quote progressive media if your life depended on it. They would never actually back up progressive media. Here, the tiniest little issue. Someone said something at college years ago rises up to the very top of the conservative ecosystem instantly. Because honestly, if you're just looking at it from a political point of view, they're better at this. They have a machine to cancel people and they use it all the time. So now back to Wilder, she says, they told me that I violated their social media policy, that AP told her that, and would be terminated immediately. But they never said which tweet or post violated the policy. I asked them, please tell me what violated the policy, and they said no. So, in other words, in the beginning of the week, they say, oh, don't worry about anything. This is good, fine. You said it in college, who cares? And then Fox News and Tom Cotton yell at him, and the Associated Press goes, okay. We'll fire anyone you want. We'll fire, if someone's against the government, the right-wing government of Israel, we fire them right away. Don't worry about it, Senator Cotton. Wait, you said it was about her tweets in college. Wait, now all of a sudden you're pretending that it's the tweets during her time at AP? In fact, the AP put out this statement. We're fair, we'll give you their statement. An Associated Press spokesperson confirmed to San Francisco Gate that Wilder was, quote, dismissed for violations of AP's social media policy during her time at AP. Really? Because you're given no evidence of that. And you haven't given what tweet or what social media activity she did while she was employed at Associated Press. Is that objective? Is that objective? It is an excellent chance that the Associated Press executives are lying, that she didn't do anything on social media that would have gotten her fired. Now, they'll probably try to cover their ass so they don't get fired, and they'll find some sort of tweet. They'll probably scouring her social media as we speak now and go, oh yeah, but the one about the dog, that seems slightly offensive to the dog people and stuff. So yeah, that's why we fired her, not because we were cowards and gave into the cancel culture of the right wing. Show me what it was that she did during her Associated Press. By the way, you guys are supposed to be journalists at Associated Press. You claim to be the most objective journalists at the Associated Press. And so here we are, as fellow journalists, asking you a question. What did she do during her tenure at the Associated Press? And right now you haven't answered that at all, because likely she didn't do anything. She says, Emily Wilder continues, there's no question I was just canceled. This is exactly the issue with the rhetoric around cancel culture. And she says about her firing, It's devastating, of course. I love journalism, and part of what I think makes me such a capable, powerful journalist is how much I care about the people I write about, particularly the marginalized. That's why I joined the Associated Press, and they saw me as capable. Bridget, let me go back to you. That last point is so important. So is the Associated Press not allowed to have anyone who cares about the news at the Associated Press? Are they all supposed to be robots that go, Palestinians, what name so? I don't know, I don't care. Black Lives Matter, I don't know, I don't care. Gay rights, I don't know, I don't care, I don't care. I don't care about any of the news that we cover. I can't, right wing, left wing, I can't tell the difference. Black people having rights in this country, black people not having rights in this country. Palestinians having rights at all as human beings or not having. I don't know and I don't care. Is that the new standard for objectivity?
God, I hope not. I think that for a long time, we've really operated under this kind of myth of objectivity where Black journalists were not allowed to cover Black Lives Matter because it was just understood that we wouldn't be able to have, an unbiased opinion about it. I think newsrooms should want to have people who are passionate, who care about people who are marginalized at the center of these stories, really driving into them. And I think, I don't really want to see a media ecosystem where we have to pretend like people aren't, that people can write stories about these kinds of things and not really bring their full selves. I don't really want to live in that kind of media ecosystem.
Also, I think it's a bad look to constantly be firing people because they have opinions on the conflict between the Israelis and the Palestinians that aren't straight right-wing propaganda, right? My man Mark Lamont Hill got fired for CNN for this very same thing. It looks bad when people who critique Israel get fired from their places of work. That being said, I just think just the idea that, when people say things that we don't like on the internet, whether they were teenagers or not, that any of our responses should be off with their heads, let's kill them, is ridiculous. The right wing of this country, they're so hypocritical as to never having any legs to stand on. These are the people who talk about don't tread on me, my free speech, blah, 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 the Constitution, all this crap. Apparently, Miss Wilder's free speech is not protected under the Constitution if you're a right winger.
Yeah, and it's great points. Look, I've defended Rush Limbaugh, Don Imus, Megyn Kelly, all of them from not getting fired before. I don't defend their comments. Their comments are terrible, and no one ripped Rush Limbaugh more than I did, even at his death, which a lot of conservatives cried about, right? Oh no, he was such a great racist. Oh, you represented a lot of his other racists, right? But that doesn't mean he shouldn't be allowed to speak. And when Megyn Kelly made the comment about blackface, why don't you have her come on with other journalists and have a conversation about it for an hour so people can understand what people are mad about on the issue of blackface. Instead, we never talk about it. She's fired and nobody ever learns, right? And so I'm totally with Waz, whether it comes from the right or the left, I'm against it. But to me, the biggest, and I'm also with Waz on one other thing. Have you ever seen anybody get fired for having a position that is pro-right-wing government of Israel? No, I've never seen that, right? You can be as virulently pro-Netanyahu, who's a butcher, and he killed 65 children. That's great, he had to. The Palestinians made him do it. They made him kill the children, right? Bravo, bravo, nobody ever gets fired for that. I think the Palestinians are also human. Boo, you insulted Ben Shapiro, you're fired, right? It's ridiculous, it's ridiculous. And Associated Press, please spare me, okay? So don't come around here and tell us that you do objective reporting when you cower from the right wing. And what is this? This is not factually correct. Your reason for firing her is not factually correct. And the firing itself was not based on facts, it was based on politics. And what is it when you're not being factually correct, but you're taking politics into consideration? That is called political correctness. So you just made a politically correct decision, and most of the politically correct decisions in this country are not ones that cave to the left wing. They're ones that cave to the right wing. And you did it again, and it seems that you lied about it. I don't know for sure. I'm still looking forward to you explaining what she did in social media while she worked at Associated Press. But that doesn't count as objective either. So get it straight. Most of corporate media sucks to begin with because they are corporate media and they're bias. They say, I don't have a bias. I just think corporations and politicians are awesome. I think the right wing is awesome. I don't say that. I frame issues that way. Medicare for all costs a lot of money. How are you going to pay for that? I don't have a bias. What bias? What bias? Right? Hey, I can't pay for college for all, but I never asked a politician, how are you going to pay for all the wars that you started? You have your bias built in on top of this toxic action that you just took. So look, the rest of the mainstream media can go and still play their silly games, and I guarantee you Bill Maher, Jake Tapper, all of the rest of them will continue to talk about cancel culture as if it is a left-wing phenomenon, when in fact it is a far deeper, and when I say deeper, it has deeper history, and they have gotten a lot more people fired, a right-wing phenomenon, but they'll never tell you that in the mainstream media, and then they'll pretend to be objective. Okay, so the Associated Press, I guess I'm a little bit more mad at you because I thought there was some chance that you were a little bit more objective than the rest of them, but this is a terrible sign. And since they're the left wing in this country, and Palestinians certainly have no power at all in this country, this will be the last you'll hear of it. Nobody will pick up the baton and continue this story. The Associated Press will likely never give an answer for why they actually fired her, and this is the last you'll hear of it until the next person is fired for having a position that Netanyahu and Shapiro don't agree with. So that's the reality of American media, and this is Exhibit A. All right, we got to take a break. When we come back, good news, something that I was looking forward to. Trump's most trusted advisor might be turning on him. Joe Roms when we return.
Magic. It's showtime. And say 45 minutes. I'm hosting today. Now I know what you're thinking, Jerry, your face is already perfect, but you know what? I still need to apply some makeup. I went through this process, right? A few years ago, when I realized that I was gonna have to wear makeup on the show. I had to go through like finding out what my undertones were. You guys know what those are? I got my MAC Cosmetics. It says SPF 15 foundation, broad spectrum. But apparently when I have is red undertones, and I think pores are not supposed to be seen. I need all these things to be confirmed for me. These sponge things don't work for me. You gotta use your hands. This I did. That's how the magic really happens. So we're gonna go through a tutorial how to make the magic happen from beautiful to beautifuler. Let's go. I've already been moisturized. That's the first thing. But moisturization already happened. We go raw, all hands. Pick up a couple streaks. This is the guy we're putting on makeup. We got dots. There's some shiny points that generally happen. First of all, here we go. You dust here. I'm putting way too much, but you dust. Oh, get the excess off. You don't want chunky powder. There's like a T-zone, I think, right? Mine is a double T-zone. Because I went middle and another cross. Make sure your nose isn't all shiny. People get on you for it. They'll say, that's not a good point you made on there, JR. Your nose is shiny. You guys are picky like that sometimes. I think that's about it, fellas and ladies. See you guys next time. Bitsies.
This isn't Anderson Cooper. If you say some BS, I'm not simply gonna let it slide and then move on to the next thing.
This is what the establishment does not understand about politics. You can change the conversation.
This is my place in that broader revolution.
We first have to fight to prove that we are human. We then have to fight for our freedom. Then we fight for our equality. And now we are fighting for our survival because your militarized police force thinks it's okay to shoot us at any point in time.
Look at what's happening in society today, and it's hard not to think about what was going on in the 50s and 60s.
We're all out here. Just everybody that cares about where this country's going, we're out here.
We are going to win this fight. We are going to transform this country.
Whoever wins this primary wins the seat.
We just took down one of the top establishment Democrats in the country. Down goes Crowley. Down goes Crowley.
This is the beginning. What do we got? We got USC in the house.
Best moment of my life, I guess, would have to be when the kid was born. Like, because suddenly that meant I served my purpose. Very close second, the day we sold Clerks. That changed my life. In fact, Harley wouldn't have been born if I hadn't sold Clerks. So that noise. Clerks, probably the biggest day, best day of my life. It led to everything else. I got the wife and the kid because Clerks happened. So don't tell the kid, but Clerks.
Our teachers are suffering, and we won't even cut 10% of the money going to military contracts.
The cost of one modern heavy bomber is this: a modern brick school in more than 30 cities.
A tiny sliver of the defense budget would pay for 395,000 teachers.
We're talking about the future of the country. We're talking about the nation's youth and making sure that we are competitive globally. And the only way to do that is to make sure that we provide quality education for our young people.
Back on TYT, Cenk, Wosny, and Bridget with you guys. So let's move on to the next story. This one's got me excited. For a long time, I've been telling you guys about one Donald Trump advisor that can get him in a lot of trouble. His name is Alan Weisselberg. And the reason I tell you about him is because he was the chief financial officer of the Trump organization. I was recently on Michael Cohen's podcast. That's a former attorney and fixer for Donald Trump. And I asked him about Alan Weisselberg. And I said, look, it seems to me that Trump can't even do math. I mean, be lucky to be able to understand 2 + 3 = 5. So that means if anything was done wrong at the Trump organization, it would have to run through Alan Weisselberg, who handled all the finances. And Michael Cohen said, that is absolutely right, okay? Now, earlier this week, the spokesperson for New York Attorney General Letitia James put out this statement, which was dramatic. We have informed the Trump organization that our investigation into the organization is no longer purely civil in nature. We are now actively investigating the Trump organization in a criminal capacity, along with the Manhattan District Attorney's Office. I like the last part. We have no additional comment. Okay, so what are they investigating? Well, CNN explains. For the past 2 years, Letitia James' office looked into matters including whether or not it improperly inflated assets on financial statements to secure loans and obtain economic and tax benefits, as well as how the Trump organization's employees were compensated. So now the employees' compensation is going to come into play here in a second. But remember, again, this was Michael Cohen during his public testimony in Congress, said, yeah, we would inflate the value of our properties when we were trying to get a loan, and then we would deflate their value when we were paying taxes. Well, that is totally criminal, totally illegal, and thank God, finally, the New York Attorney General is looking into it. Better late than never. I thought they should have looked into it 4 years ago. The whole time I've been saying, Weisselberg, just go get Weisselberg, it's so obvious. Well, now Jennifer Weisselberg is, his former daughter-in-law is out talking to the press about how big a story this is and how much trouble both the Weisselbergs and the Trumps are in. So here she is on CNN, let's watch.
Tip of the iceberg, as far as I'm concerned, the next thing on the agenda is to discuss the issues with the woman rink, the Alaska rink and the carousel, which would be Barry Weisselberg and his role in the Trump organization and how the cash that flowed in from that and the expenses are not transparent and are not true.
They're not true. It's a pretty damning statement, and she had access to a lot of those, and CNN showed her carrying out documents and giving it to the authorities. But she said in the clip that you just saw there, that's the tip of the iceberg. She say iceberg? All right, I think that this is probably what's happening at Mar-a-Lago right now. Let's watch.
Is there anyone there? Yes, what you see?
Weisselberg!
Right ahead! Thank you.
Weisselberg!
Right ahead! Stop
We thank paramedics out pictures for that video. Guys, let me give you the last couple ones here and then we'll talk it through. So look, she explained that Barry Weisselberg, an employee of the Trump organization, might have done things that are wrong. That's her former husband, so she knows and she's got some documents about it. And when you're playing around with your expenses and submitting ones that are not true, that is definitely a crime. She mentioned the rink in Central Park and how they might have done shady dealings around that. But she had a lot more where that came from. Let's watch.
As far as I'm concerned, there's been nothing legal going on in the past 21 years.
But it's an incredible thing to say.
It is. There's been nothing legal going on for the last 21 years in the Trump organization. I told you, of course, look at his finances. It's the most obvious thing in the world. All right, she's got more.
I respect the DA's and AG's investigation. It is serious, and it continues to be finite because numbers are finite, you know? They just are what they are, and there needs to be accountability.
I like that statement. We're gonna come back to it. Numbers are finite, okay? You either played with them or you didn't play with them, right? That's not arguable. And then finally, yes, but you were inside the family. She was at inauguration. They just got divorced in 2018. She was with Trump all the way through to 2018, not with him psychologically apparently, or giving him moral support, but she was there in the inauguration, etc., right? And all throughout. So what do you think? Will Alan Weisselberg flip on Trump? Let's find out.
Will Alan Weisselberg flip on Trump?
Yes.
Wow, I mean, no hesitation at all with your answer there.
Tick, 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 tick. Okay, what do you guys think?
Yeah, I think, man, it's funny when previous Trump cronies like Manafort, like General Flynn, they were brought up on federal charges and they had no incentive to flip because their boy could always pardon them, right? This is not the case. This isn't a federal charge. And two, Trump's no longer in power. Whether he has the jurisdiction over something that's happening in New York while he's president doesn't matter. He can sort of wield the levers of power while he's in the most powerful office in the entire world, right? To sort of bend things to his will. He's out of the cat daddy seat. And so if people around him are getting in trouble, they have no reason to go with this. Nobody has any undying loyalty to a guy like Trump who has done nothing but just use people essentially his whole life until they were no longer to his benefit, and then he disposes of them and throws them under the bus where we could see the tire tracks from Mars. But what I would say is, yeah, it seems pretty obvious that if any actual heat is brought upon Weisselberg, that he's gonna sing like a bird.
Oh yeah, I completely agree. I have to say, I love everything about this story. It's so petty, but I love it. I love the fact that this is, an ex-wife saying everything there is to say about her former father-in-law. I love the fact that she knows so much about the dirty dealings of Trump's organization. I love how she's so clear, like, in the interview, she says there's nothing legal going on here. There's nothing even legal going on here for 20 years. They have these pictures of her wheeling giant boxes of evidence to the prosecutors. I don't know if it's just that petty feeling of watching something unravel, but I love this story. I love everything about it.
Yeah, well, there's two things here, right? One is the drama, and that affects whether Weisselberg's gonna flip or not. So part of the reason that Michael Cohen flipped was Trump was such a jerk to him the entire time they were working together. And he took it and he took it and he took it because he thought, hey, that's the big boss man and I'm making money here, etc. right? But the minute that honestly, his ass was on the line, he was like, wait, I'm gonna go to prison for a long time to protect Trump? Nah, and I remember the story of Trump coming to Michael Cohen's son's bar mitzvah and then making fun of Michael Cohen in front of all the guests. Like he got the mic and he started humiliating Michael Cohen. And that sits with people. And in the case of, did he do it to Weisselberg? Of course! course he does it to everybody, right? Even though the guy has all the books. If Trump was smart, he would treat Weisselberg like a king, because the guy has all the evidence, right? Nope, of course not, because Trump can't help himself. So they're sitting Shiva. Alan Weisselberg's mom had passed away, and he apparently has a modest house in Long Island, which I was surprised by. But that made me like him more, not Trump. Trump shows up theoretically to pay respects, and he says, "This is where my CFO lives. It's embarrassing." And then he went and hit on Jennifer Weisselberg. Now, at the time, she's a very young bride to Alan Weisselberg's son. And he's openly, brazenly hitting on her because he's a terrible person. And by the way, they're trying to mourn Alan's mom passed away. And then he starts showing naked pictures of women that he claims he slept with to people who are trying to mourn, because that's who Donald Trump is. So is Alan Weisselberg gonna flip on him? It totally depends on if they have enough evidence on Alan and Barry Weisselberg. If they do, Alan will flip like that, right? Who the hell would want to protect a monster like this? Now, by the way, don't get me wrong, both Michael Cohen and Alan Weisselberg guilty. They worked with him for decades. I'm not letting them off the hook at all. But guys, one last thing about it. It is important, because if they can actually prove these crimes, I mean, it seems inconceivable that Donald Trump would go to prison. But if it was any other person and you committed anywhere near these alleged crimes, you would definitely go to prison. What happens in a world where Donald Trump goes to prison? What happens at that trial? Does MAGA change any of its minds, or do they get even more bitter and hostile? What do you guys think?
I think we're past the point of those people changing their minds. His most fervent followers and supporters, I think if anything, they'll be like, this is a crock. He's being scapegoated. This is a witch hunt. It's a hoax. It's fake news. All the denials that you typically, hear and see from these guys. But a lot of this strikes me as just like how cheap these crimes are. Like, these guys are cheap criminals, petty thieves they are. They're not masterminds, they're not geniuses. They're just petty, greedy thieves. And it's embarrassing that our country actually fell for this crap.
Sounds about right.
To your point earlier, I think it really goes to show you that Trump is at the center of this. And when you have somebody who is only loyal to themselves at the center of this house of cards, it's not surprising that everybody is flipping, everybody is singing like a canary. These are not really, sophisticated criminals to begin with. And yeah, I think the fact that Trump is such a narcissist and he's at the middle of all of this is why everyone is falling all over themselves to sing like canaries.
Yeah, it's the last thing, guys. It's hard to run for president in 2024 if you're in prison. So that's why this story is not just funny, it's super relevant. But if they actually charge him and he survives it, well, he then will have so much more media attention around him, and then he walks out as Teflon Don again. Who knows? Maybe that helps him. So you got to keep it real and understand that those are the stakes in this story. It is not a small story. This could develop into the biggest story. And then personally, I'm just relieved that finally someone realized, yes, follow the money. This is not complicated. The guy's a lifelong criminal. All you have to do is look at his books and you'll get him instantly. They should have done this years ago. All right, we got to take another break. When we come back, we will further humiliate Ted Cruz.
I'm in Salt Lake City, Utah. I'm at a Wolfpack gathering.
We're growing. I see faces that I recognize, but I also see a lot of faces that I don't recognize, and that's fantastic.
We are all taking time out of our lives to be here, and that's amazing. That means we truly believe in this.
Make no mistake, everyone in this room is a leader in a Wolfpack.
Alaska, West Virginia, Montana, Georgia, Massachusetts, New York, New Jersey, everyone is here. All these folks paid with their own money and sometimes took vacation days to come here to strategize on how to get our democracy back and get money out of politics.
Or you get more political power just because you have more money. This is why it requires a constitutional amendment.
The process of winning in your state next year doesn't begin when session begins. It begins right now. To work to a goal, something this big that you're actually making a difference of, there's very few things in the world that really compare to that feeling.
Equal rights to fair representation, rights for human beings, anti-corruption laws, and free and fair elections. That's what we are fighting for.
What were the founding fathers? Revolutionaries. And they built revolution into the document.
So Article 5 is the way we have to go.
This is how you do it.
You're in this as a team, you're in this together. The fight will always continue.
That fight is not between the left and the right. That fight is between basically greed and humanity.
So I'm asking you to put differences aside, whether you're conservative or independent or progressive, to join forces to say no more corruption.
You get beyond the fear, you take that first step, and you'll change the world.
What I want to leave you with, of course, is hope. And I want to assure you that if we keep fighting together, we're going to win together. We're going to get that convention, we're going to get that amendment, and we're going to get our democracy back. Come join us, wolf-pac.com.
Sharp increase in healthcare insurance premiums next year in response to the ongoing coronavirus pandemic.
The country is desperate for Medicare for all, but the mainstream media will tell you nonstop lies about how people don't want it.
Between 5.8 million and 23 million lost their health care just during this pandemic. And Joe Biden says, no, I don't think that's an argument for Medicare for all.
How are you going to find $35 trillion?
They constantly misstate things, but without explaining that the current system costs at least $50 trillion. Every other developed nation has a single payer system, and they all pay less. In fact, on average, they pay about half of what we pay.
It doesn't matter if taxes go up, if your healthcare costs go way, way down.
The for-profit health insurance companies are simply a scam, price gouging you, and they're in between you and your doctor.
Look, guys, the good news is we're gonna win. We're gonna get Medicare for all.
A famous new author has a book out. His name is Dogan Uygur. That's my dad. Okay, the name of the book is called The Original Young Turk, and it's his life story. I read it, trust me, you're gonna love it. He has such a straightforward way of telling stories that you're gonna be amused by it. It's like, wow, then I met JFK, then I was at the White House, then I started a business, then I became Businessman of the Year. It's amazing. You're gonna love the stories, and it's part of what made me progressive. Check it out at shoptyt.com.
It is wrong to deny any of your fellow Americans the right to vote in this country.
Look, I tell you guys, most important thing is voting in primaries. Primaries.
I hope every American will vote for the candidate and party of his choice, but vote.
We cannot continue to complain about corruption and complain about what's happening in this country and continue to vote for it.
Let's get it right this time. It could be a moment of redemption for what happened in 2016. Back on TYT, Cenk, Bridget, and Woz with you guys. And that 01 Cobra just joined on YouTube, so he's also with us. It's a good transition because we're about to talk about a different snake. But Chang Pak just joined us too. Thank you, Chang. Let's go talk about that snake called Ted Cruz. So Ted Cruz decided that he was going to be a tough guy. This is not going to work out well for him. And he wanted to talk about the US military and how we're not as tough as the Russian military. Come on, he didn't really imply that, did he? Yes, he did. First of all, let me show you his tweet. He said, and this is in reference to a video that we're about to show you. Holy crap, perhaps a woke, emasculated military is not the best idea. Did you just say emasculated? All right, we're gonna come back to that because Ted Cruz would know a thing or two about being emasculated. But first, I wanna show you the Russian propaganda video that he attached. I guess they're trying to copy Trump in every way they can. So this is the video that he put out.
Твоей новой жизни. Что ты знаешь о себе? На что ты способен? Вопросы могут остаться без ответов, но разве ты сможешь узнать себя, познать границы своих возможностей? К черту границы, а без боя нет победы. Но на самом деле. Главный враг – это задача выследить врага, догнать его, превзойти, стать лучше, чем он.
It begins in California with a little girl raised by two moms. I also marched for equality. I like to think I've been defending freedom from an early age. To marry my other mom. With such powerful role models, I finished high school at the top of my class. And after meeting with an Army recruiter, I found it. A way to prove my inner strength. I'm U.S. Army Corporal Emma Malone Lord, and I answered my calling.
So now when the US military put out that video in the first place, the second half of that video, obviously, we told you it's a little absurd. And that the reason they were doing it was trying to reach young people. And the Army put out a message later saying, yeah, we're trying to reach young people. It turns out they're progressive and they come from all different walks of life. And when we just could tell them, we're gonna go kill people, it doesn't really work. Okay, I'm paraphrasing the military. And so we're trying to tell them this is an acceptable job for every kind of American, right? And Ted Cruz doesn't like that. He wants our military to be for every kind of Russian, apparently. And then I thought, but they're pairing these two videos together, that looks like total Russian propaganda. I wonder where it came from. Well, then we go to the Hill for this explanation. The video initially surfaced on Twitter when a Dutch user who frequently posts far-right content shared it, according to Alexander Reed Ross, a doctoral fellow at the United Kingdom-based Center for Analysis of the Radical Right. Ross told the Post that the clip had been surfacing on channels that promote fascist and anti-Semitic beliefs. To which I say, of course. So now we go back to emasculated. Now, I know Ted Cruz isn't talking about being emasculated because I do remember this happening in the 2016 primary. Hold, let's not get to that yet. First, let's show you Ted Cruz being so angry about what Donald Trump said about Heidi Trump. I'm sorry. Although, anyway, Heidi Cruz, his wife, and he said he was gonna fight back. Let's watch that video.
It's not easy to tick me off. I don't get angry often. But you mess with my wife, you mess with my kids, that'll do it every time. Donald, you're a sniveling coward and leave Heidi the hell alone.
So will you support him as the nominee?
I'm gonna beat him for the nomination. He is not, I am answering the question. Donald Trump will not be the nominee.
Just a couple of months later, this is what happened. Emasculated. Let's show the picture. No, that's the definition of emasculated. That's the definition of emasculated, right? So I got more, but Woz, jump in.
First, I gotta say, Russian soldiers, pretty hot, pretty good there. No, what I would say is it's like I don't even understand how Ted Cruz could fix his mouth to call people who volunteer for our armed services woke and emasculated. It's absurd when a guy goes on national TV, calls your wife a slob, then accuses your dad of doing JFK, and then you're seen publicly phone banking for him. Phone bank, you like, that's actual work. Like he's actually doing labor in service of Donald Trump's campaign. Like he still hasn't washed the dirt off of his tongue from all the bootlicking he did back in 2016 and throughout the administration. He's pathetic.
Bridget.
Yeah, it is pathetic. I mean, just a few months ago, this is the same guy who was trying to blame his little young daughters for him sneaking off to a Mexican beach during a storm. And he wants to talk about who's masculine. Like, he really should look in the mirror or like not talk about this kind of stuff because it's embarrassing. I really liked Tammy Duckworth's response. She said, perhaps the US senator shouldn't suggest that the Russian military is better than the American military that protected him from an insurrection that he helped foment. I really do think that listening to Ted Cruz speak like this is just embarrassing. And also, I think your point about how this video came from a really nefarious Twitter account, like he is doing foreign bad actors, he's doing their job for them by spreading this with his huge platform. It's really just so embarrassing.
Yeah, and I didn't consider what Woz was saying. I mean, it's funny because he's like, oh, you guys are so emasculated because she has 2 moms, right? That Russian army video could have easily been LGBTQ erotic video. Okay. So I don't know. I mean,
it sure got my loins going.
All right, now I'll give you one more Ted Cruz tweet. He says, I'm enjoying lefty blue check marks losing their minds over this tweet, dishonestly claiming that I'm attacking the military. No, we have the greatest military on earth, but Dem politicians and woke media are trying to turn them into pansies. The new Dem videos are terrible. Pansies. Like, these guys are always so tough when they're talking on Twitter, right? And then your bitch ass was phone banking for Donald Trump, going, yes, my wife is ugly and my dad is probably a murderer. I'm so pathetic. Oh, please vote for my adversary. I'm a loser. Okay, you don't get to call anybody pansies, okay? But I like vote vets coming in. They represent actual veterans. They says Ted Cruz attacks a US Army soldier for telling her story, says he prefers Russians because Ted Cruz is a sedition-loving traitor. But I'm gonna go to one last one. Charlotte Clymer on Twitter said, you were an able-bodied 20-year-old during the build-up to the Persian Gulf War. Did you take a few months to enlist in the reserves? No, you finished your degree at Princeton, I do declare. You were 30 on 9/11, did you enlist? Of course not. Sweetie, you're a coward and a hypocrite. And she wasn't done yet. She said that young soldier who you claim emasculates our military has more guts and strength of character on her worst day than you've ever had at your best. Here, Charlotte. The one thing that the whole country can agree on is Ted Cruz, pathetic. All right, for our members, we got a giant episode for you. Dumbest congressman admits it, and then hilarious punk video. We'll see you there.